Hi magical ones, it's Ethany, and today I'm going to be talking about a massive subject, boundaries. This has come from the Awakened Soul Coven, which is my Awakened Coven, the Maiden Circle. This month we are talking about psychic protection, magical protection, and boundaries. And I had a whole lot of stuff to offer the coven for psychic protection and magical protection, but I wanted to wrap up a whole bunch of information in regards to setting boundaries, one of my favorite things to do, and offer it. And I thought, well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people could get quite a bit out of that. So I put together the Modern Witch's Guide to Healthy Boundaries. This is a massive subject, and many of the points that I'm going to run through have got entire books written about them. As a matter of fact, they have many books written about them. So buckle up. I'm going to try to cover as much as I can without making it a rival for Homer's Iliad. As with everything I share, take what resonates with you and simply leave the rest. So I believe that setting and maintaining magical and healthy boundaries is critical when working with magic and when we are looking at the life that we want to actually live. Not being a passive force in our lives, being an active participant in the creation of our reality. Boom, mind blown, big concepts. The most obvious boundaries we can create as witches, or those of you who take on the mantle of witch or pagan, neo-pagan, druid, Asitu, whatever you like to label yourself and whatever you are comfortable calling yourself, is in a form of magical circle. There are also essential boundaries modern witches should set outside of their magic circle in their daily lives, and I'm going to actually offer a little bit of both, a little bit of like what I do magically and then what I also would recommend that you do not magically. So let's get into this. I have got a ton of notes. I've written a full blog post on this as well over at ethany.com, and as always it will be in the description box below. Not the whole blog post, but the link. I think you all have that by now. I need more coffee. This is like, don't be a basic witch. We're going to learn how not to be a basic witch right now. You're going to learn how to be very effective at setting your boundaries. So the first thing, and something that I feel is extremely important in any form of magical work, any form of spiritual work, or any form of personal development work, is witch, know thyself. This is something that happens, a lot of self-reflection happens when you take on the mantle of the craft and when you start to walk a spiritual journey. It's a very reflective process, and you can't manifest or you can't create magic and create change if you don't know yourself, if you don't know why things are happening, where your desires lie, if you don't do some of that juicy shadow work. So one of the things about boundaries and knowing themselves is when you know yourself, when you own your limits and you speak them, you create an amazing boundary. You are able to actually walk in the world with confidence because you know what you are going to accept in life and what you are not. If you don't know what you stand for and you don't know where your lines are, you will accept a lot more in your life than you're going to feel comfortable with. And you are more likely to be taken advantage of. The more this happens, the more you're likely to get stuck in a cycle, and the more likely you're going to get slowly but surely moving into a victim role. Now, I want to take a hot moment and say no part of this is going to be me blaming any victim for somebody else asserting their will unwantingly on somebody else. Consent is 120 million% needed for pretty much any activity that you do. So I'm not saying that if someone has been a right jerk, your boundaries weren't great. That is absolutely not the case. And anyone who says something like that, well, they and I would have a very interesting conversation about that. What I'm talking about is when we are unable to stand up for ourselves in a situation that we actually could have, not when we're in a role where someone is actually either abusing us or we are being bullied or we are in a situation where we don't have that control because somebody else is being a jerk. So I just wanted to really, really clearly say that that is not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about being a victim. What I'm talking about is when we have all had, for example, we've all had that friend who has a family member who maybe takes all of their money, or will bugger off with their car and not ask, or will eat all their food and not replace it, or will expect them to pay their phone bills, things like that. Now that is a boundary that you absolutely 100% can instill. Is it going to be comfortable? Probably not. Is there going to be fallout? Absolutely. Is it essential? Well, if you want to get out of the victim role, it absolutely is. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about someone actually an abuse situation. So just want to be really, really clear there. We teach other people how to treat us when we enter into a relationship, whether that's platonically or in a love relationship at work. We teach them through what we accept and what we do not accept, and what we clearly communicate and what we do not communicate, how to treat us. And believe me, there are plenty of people who will take silence as accepting as an invitation, and will be very happy to walk all over you. You likely already know who and what is crossing your boundaries because it feels like shit. No one comes into your life and kind of tramples all over you and it feels good. The challenge is being able to communicate what you want and what you need instead. And if you can't do this, it's because you don't know, and maybe you need a little bit of courage as well. So spend some time reflecting on what behavior, situations, and treatment makes you feel uncomfortable and stressed. They're really, really good journaling questions for anyone on the spiritual path. And it's a really good practice, even if you're just like, yeah, I need to work on my boundaries this year. Last year, I was kind of like, people were kind of taking advantage of me. This is great. Actually crack out a journal or a notebook and go through what behaviors, situations, and treatments make you feel uncomfortable and stressed. And remember, all of this is over in my blog post. So if I'm going too fast, or if you need to write some stuff down, just make sure you go and check it out because it's all in writing for you as well. Then you are going to have a look at what needs to happen for you to feel respected by both yourself and others, and relaxed instead, and what is right for you. One of the things that I find with a lot of people is that they go and do things out of obligation, or they stay a lot longer at maybe a social engagement or an event because they feel they have to, instead of just saying, you know what, peace out, I need to go and recharge. I've capped my max here, and leave. Some people are really good at ghosting, but just some situations like work and social things and in your family. Also consider the relationships in your life. Are the people and situations you're currently investing in aligned with your values? I'm going to say that sentence again because I feel like it's very, very important. Are the people and situations you are currently invested in aligned with your values? Are they what you want to be spending your energy on? This is a really quick kind of gut thing of whether your investment of your precious time and energy, which you cannot get back, is actually worth it. Now, sometimes you can course correct those. Sometimes you can actually get to a place where both parties can come and have a conversation. But the first part of that, if you want to start to repairing any of those relationships, is owning your own shit first. Many people make the mistake of thinking that setting boundaries is about other people. It's about everybody else around them. It's actually not that at all. I know it can feel a lot like you want the control back in your life, and having boundaries is a great way of getting your control back and setting some very good security measures in place for yourself. But the only way to do this is by stating what is not okay and what is okay for you. It's about you. It's about creating a safe environment for you. It's about standing up for yourself. So figure it out, write it down, put on your Wonder Woman under rules. We all know how much I love Wonder Woman. And become a boundary badass. Your life and your magic will blossom. Because here's the thing about magic as well. We have a ton of energy coming at us all the time. We have a ton of information coming at us all the time. Most of the time we're surrounded by screens and things coming at us. When you have clear boundaries, you're almost setting out a shield on top of all of the other shielding you're doing, saying, I'm not accepting this. This energy is not mine. This is not welcome in my space. And it's going to make you feel a lot healthier. It's going to help your a lot of maybe anxiety, especially if you're an empath like myself. I find that if I don't tend my boundaries. I get very overwhelmed, and then I'm like, oh yep, somewhere somehow I have not tended a boundary, and my empathness is leaking, and I need to control that. So one part of, a lot of people ask me about how do you control, or how do you learn to turn down your empathy. Something I had to learn very early on when I started my magical work, or otherwise I'd be a mess. And one part of it is having very, very healthy boundaries. So the second part of this, so we've done a bit of like getting to know you, asking all these questions. Now, which you need to embody your magic. Once you've written down that big list of what you will and will not accept, now you have to enforce it. And this is the really hard thing to do. We're looking at the to dare and to will here. So you're really going to have to pull into those pillars of magic for yourself, learning how to put them into practice. I also find that this tends to be a place where a lot of people get stuck in their magical learning. They read all the books, they do all the to know stuff, they gather all the information, and then actually enacting it and being someone who is walking their talk gets really, really tricky. So here's some of the keys that you can use, or some of the things that I've done that have really helped me kind of get out of my own way and not sabotage it when it comes to enacting and enforcing my boundaries. Have a plan. Be prepared. Isn't it like the Girl Guides or the Scouts, whatever? I was a Girl Guide, so it was like be prepared, right? So have a plan of what you're going to do and say when your boundaries are being pushed. You likely have a very clear idea of who is the number 1, 2, 3, 15 people in your life who push your boundaries, who make you feel uncomfortable, who you don't really want to hang around with, who you like hope to heck isn't going to come into your office that day. You probably know, so you can set some scenarios in place. It may not happen word for word, but at least you have a plan. And by being prepared, you're less likely to fall into old habits, and that is super great. We want to create new habits and new things for the year so that this becomes something very, very easy, and something where you notice if things start to bend a little bit, you can reinforce them. Work on some key phases and responses that you can use in any situation. Since boundaries are about you, it's essential to use I statements and talk about what you need. It's always about what is important to you and how you want to feel. For example, because I like to give you all examples, if you have a coworker who often comes into your office, bitches and moans and gossips, telling her to fuck off is probably not the best way to enforce a boundary with her. It is a boundary. Fuck off is absolutely a boundary. Although it might feel really great in the moment, your ass is about to get hauled in front of HR pretty quickly if she doesn't like retaliate and tell you to F off too. I'm not speaking from experience. I don't think I've ever told anyone in my workplace to fuck off, but I've certainly been in HR discussions where someone has done that. It never goes well for either party. So what you can say instead is, I feel uncomfortable talking about other people. I want to have positive conversations and interactions. I'm happy to talk about something else later, but right now I need to get back to work. That might feel like me saying that, and you thinking about you saying that might feel like it's a stone stuck in your stomach, but really practicing something like that, just even saying it in the mirror, is really, really helpful. I know it can be very, very difficult if you have someone who comes in and is as a big energy to tell them to go away. But even if you just learn something like that, it can really, really help. And see how that was all about you. I feel uncomfortable. I want to have positive conversations. I'm happy to talk about something else later, but right now I need to get back to work. It's also okay just to say no. No is a complete sentence and doesn't need any clarification. Saying no never goes out of style, and it feels great. Say it loud and say it proud. Something that I've been doing in Vancouver is going to Camp Hoo Ha, and the first one that they did was a self-defense one, and everyone had to learn how to put their hand out right in front of them and just say no really, really assertively. Just like if you were saying, like if I was saying no to my dog, learning how to do that is really important. So if you need to go and learn how to do that in front of a mirror just to say no, maybe some of you have never said it in an assertive, authoritative way before. So how other people react to your boundaries is on them. Something that really can derail you is you worrying about how other people are going to take this brand new, amazing Wonder Woman, I'm taking no shit kind of person. But it's not up to you to manage their reactions or soothe their feelings. You're not being an asshole. You're setting a loving, respectful space for yourself. If you meet resistance, and you probably are, you can say something like, I'm just letting you know what I need. I would like you to honor it. If people don't respect that, remove yourself from the situation or the relationship. Even if you say, I'm letting you know what I need, I'd like you to honor that, and they are not okay with that in the moment, you've still stated a secondary boundary on that. It is not okay for them to negate it. If you're staying in situations and relationships that don't respect you, you need to own that. It's on you to change. Understanding your emotional and energetic reactions is imperative. If you feel like you're doing something out of guilt or not doing something because you're scared, you aren't honoring yourself. Many boundaries, unfortunately, aren't a one and done. Therefore, you have to practice energetic protection, hygiene, and care as well on top of all of that, saying no and standing up for yourself. Use practices such as grounding and centering, cord cutting, meditation, and deflection. Choose what feels right to you and implement it. So some of my practices that I've been doing since I know I was like 15, and probably before then too, on a subconscious level, I actively energetically cleanse my living space at least once a month. I can feel it when things start to get a little bit icky in here, and I know I have to cleanse quite regularly. I cast and release a magical circle every single time I work magic. If I'm going to conjure something, I'm going to release it. It is important to also not only keep energies out that I don't want to interfere with my work, but also to keep energy in that I actually want to work with until I'm ready to release it. I energetically ground and cut cords often. I also do a lot of energy running, running light through my aura, things like that. And I've also made an effort to observe and not absorb other people's energy. As a tarot reader, high priestess, and empath, that was my number one priority and one of the first things I learned. And that is a lot of it is about boundaries and having a very good energetic boundary, as well as an emotional and psychological space where I know what is mine and I know what is somebody else's. So a good place to start is learning a good shielding technique and building your skills up from there. So that was a big one, and I know, as I mentioned before, we've still got a lot to go, but there are books that have been written on every one of these subjects, and know that I am just touching on each one of these things. And a little bit is even better than nothing. If you just learn to put boundaries in with one person in your life, you're winning. That is an absolute win for you. So don't feel as though you have to take on absolutely everyone. Maybe just try one person at a time and go from there. Even saying no just once from a situation that you might have said yes to is a really good place to start. You don't have to take it all on at once. Just making sure that I was recording then, because I was like, oh my gosh, if I've been talking for 20 minutes and I wasn't recording, I would die. Okay, it is a Monday morning. So the next part is care for thyself. It might sound super cliche, but you've got to put yourself first. If you aren't, you're giving away all of your energy, magic reserves, and time to others. Now, I am a single mum. I'm a business owner. And I'm also a high priestess in a coven, and I do a lot of other stuff for other people, and I know the struggle. I know how hard it can be to put myself first. So I'm not saying this as someone who's like able to lazily just do nothing and put myself first, but there is a time when you need to say, okay, are my basics being taken care of? And maybe I need to say no to a social engagement, or go to bed early, or rearrange some meetings so that I can take care of myself. It's something that I have learned over the last 6 years from running my business, and being a full-time tarot reader, and also a mum. So of course there are basics like sleep, eating well, and exercise, which can help you feel balanced, healthy, and sane. But I also know that sometimes those scales do tend to kind of get unbalanced. Like sometimes you're exercising really well, but then work isn't doing so hot. So it's never really 100% all the time, if that makes sense. But much of self-care is actually personal. It might be saying no to a draining social engagement, or leaving early if you have to go, like give yourself a time limit. Or you might be getting up earlier than normal to get some art, fitness, or study in. Something like that can be simple self-care. I actually find it really, really helpful if you have a social engagement where you know it's going to be really draining, but you are going because it's important for someone for you to be there to support them. If you even just state your boundaries up really, really upfront, you go to the person that has organized it, give them a hug and say hello if you're a hugger, and you say, oh, I just wanted to let you know I can be here until 10:30 or 11 o'clock and then I need to go. Don't need to offer any explanation, don't need to offer, explain why. You're just letting them know right from the outset that you have a boundary. Whatever self-care is for you, say yes to yourself. You might need to say no to somebody else, but that's okay, because remember, you put on those Wonder Woman underoos a couple of points ago. Self-care is also being gentle with yourself. We are often our biggest critic. Words have weight, especially for witches. So what seeds of spells you sow when you use harsh words against yourself may actually turn and bear fruit. So be very, very cautious of that. And that's another aspect of knowing yourself. Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, see them as opportunities for learning. Woo, we are getting all we're getting all into it today. We are never perfect, especially when it comes to putting in boundaries. Forgive yourself. New people come into your life and they bring new situations into it, and it's never too late to put in a healthy boundary. Some healthy self-care practices for us witches include every full moon after your ritual, whether it's a small or a large one, have a cleansing bath and take some time to journal your worries away. Drink herbal tea that aids your magic work and also helps to flush out toxins. Please, for the love of goodness, drink lots of water. Stay hydrated, you... what is that? Is it stay hydrated, you able but dehydrated bitch? Regularly reflect in your mirror book about some of the challenges that you have and look for healthy ways to address them. And know what is best to let be. Sometimes the best way to enact a boundary is to walk away from drama and say, thanks, but no thanks. Remember that big fat no. The next point is to witch, gather your A-team. It's easier to give zero fucks about what Brenda in accounting thinks about you and saying hell no to the work she's trying to dump on your ass when you've got good people in your corner. A stellar support crew not only helps you feel really good about yourself, they can help you feel less attached to what boundary pushers in your life think, which is really, really important. Your support system, your team, your A-team may include a mental health professional, and there's no shame in that. In fact, having someone help deal with past trauma or just be there through hard times is a really, really smart idea. Personally, I love me some good old therapy. There's nothing like actually going to someone who's going to give you the tools you need and help you see things from a perspective that you would never have considered, or your friends or your family or anyone with bias, to help you navigate this murky water. We are not living in a natural environment. We are living in a society that we have created, and we are not born with everything that we need in order to navigate some of the systems and experiences that we've created as humans. If you're someone who doesn't like to put others out with their problems, remember it's healthy to lean on the people who are close to us. If you need a good bitch about something that is happening, instead of worrying, I ask permission. That way they have the opportunity to say no, or they can prepare for the venting wave if they say yes. So, for example, I have a very good relationship with my sister, and I know that anything that I say to her in a way that is venting is absolutely safe. She's not going to repeat it to anybody. And if I'm feeling particularly triggered or someone has just downright pissed me off, I can call her and say, hey, can I vent to you for a second? That way I've given her permission to say no and enact her boundary if she has it. If she's not in a space to do so, maybe she's tired, or maybe she just had someone else venting to her. But if she says yes, it's given her the opportunity to put up the this is not about me subconscious energy wall, so she's not actually taking on anything that I say as an attack. And I really appreciate it when people say that to me as well. They ask for my permission. Other things you can do to strengthen your support team include gathering your guides and helpers on the other side for support. You have so much help, whether you know it or not. And especially if you're digging into the world of the craft or on a spiritual journey, absolutely gather your guides and helpers and ask them to help you for support. A lot of people I know in my coven and in the wider community actually do things like daily devotionals. So what you can do is you can build your boundary practices through there. You can ask your guides, you can ask your gods, your ancestors, whoever you work with, to help you maintain your boundaries for that day. What that also does is it makes you aware. You're consciously pulling in your awareness to say, I'm going to enact my boundaries today, which is an amazing statement of being present in your work. Something else you can do is help other people when they're putting in their boundaries. If you can, so can they. And if you can help them, that is really, really great. So again, how you can do that is if someone puts a boundary in front of you and says, I'm not comfortable with this, acknowledging that they need to feel safe and that it's not about you, and being okay helps everyone feel okay. We all love that. And finally, oh my gosh, we're nearly there, everyone. I know this has been quite a lot of information coming at you, is which don't take it personally. A boundary is a person stating what they need and what they stand for, and not a rejection of you. Being on the receiving end of a boundary can be quite triggering at times, especially if you feel disappointment or an expectation hasn't been met, or you're just used to that person doing it for you because they've done it for you for years. But when you honor others' boundaries, you pave the way of having your own honored in return. I am really lucky to have a bunch of people in my life who've worked hard on their boundaries. I love them because they don't take my boundaries personally. They know that I'm not saying no to them, but yes to myself. And that's really, really important to remember. You're not saying no to someone else. You're saying yes to yourself. We've all been in that situation where we've actually not felt like 100% well, or our energy is really low, and we've gone to something and actually regretted it later. What I love about the people in my life that I have healthy boundaries with is I can say, I'm feeling run down, I'm at my limit, I'm tapped out, or I'm just not feeling very well. I'm going to stay at home, and then not feel any guilt or shame or someone coming back pressuring me to change my mind. And does that ever feel amazing? You can help others set their boundaries by doing a few things. You can see if people look uncomfortable around you, and if they do, ask them if they feel uncomfortable. Communication is one of the things that we are absolutely gifted with, so you may as well use it. Ask someone if they'd like a hug before you give one to them. Consent is really sexy. I am a huge hugger. I love hugs, but I always remember that I need to ask people if they would like to be hugged, children including. That's a really important thing about being around children, is you have to, give them the opportunity to have autonomy over their body. So I always ask if I can have a hug from my son, and he's okay. If he doesn't want one, he can say no. And then you can also graciously allow people to opt out of commitments if they're sick, feeling low, or just need a reset. Now, there are people that I will absolutely, if I'm pushing my 50-50 limit, will go to things because I also believe in having integrity, and I show up to things I say I'm going to. It usually takes quite a lot for me to back out of something, because my word is my word, and my word is pretty solid. Otherwise, I'd be a pretty shit witch. So I try to make sure that I get to everything and I don't bail out on people. But if you have a good team that understands when you say, look, I really can't, they understand that you, for a good reason, are opting out, then it's really great to allow people to do that for you as well. Setting boundaries can feel really tough at times, but a little discomfort up front will vastly outweigh the suffering of not having them. And having healthy boundaries is just one of the pillars of working your magic, of being someone who can protect themselves psychically and energetically as well. Now, I have a bunch of further reading. I've got my energetic and psychic protection blog posts as number 1 and number 2. They're all over on ethany.com. I also found a couple of really, really good guides that go even further into setting boundaries. One is the No BS Guide to Setting Healthy Boundaries in Real Life, and the other one is How to Set Boundaries, 10 Examples plus a PDF workbook. And we all love a good workbook. I would love to hear from you. Let me know about some of the boundaries that you've put in your life, or if you have felt as though this is the year that you would like to change some of the boundaries and relationships that you have in your life, especially the relationship you have with you. Are you going to give yourself permission to feel safe, welcomed, and secure, and really comfortable in your life, in your work, and in your relationships? Let me know in the comments below, and I really hope this has been super helpful. And as always, thank you for watching.